It's crockpot season, and in a few short minutes, I'll have 3 delicious, easy recipes for you to add to your meal plan this week, as well as some great crockpot cooking tips. First up is lentil and chicken sausage stew. I'll have the ingredients and recipe link in my description box below. I'm getting onions and carrots cut up first, and I'm doubling this recipe. It calls for 1 medium onion and 1 carrot, and I am doubling the recipe, which brings me to my first crock pot tip, and that is when you fill your crock pot to the very top, you're going to increase cooking time. This recipe calls for 8 hours in the crock pot, but I had to give it more like 10 hours so that my lentils would be cooked through, because I am using dried lentils. If there's someone in your family that's really bothered by onions, I know it can be a texture issue for some kids. An option would be to cut it in maybe 4 big pieces and plop it right into the crock pot like that, and then you can easily remove the onion before you serve the dish. There's many people who would take these peels and they would save them to use toward a chicken stock. If you'd like to know how to make chicken stock, you can just let me know in the comment section below, and I'd be happy to create that video. Another great idea would be to compost these peels. I'm not doing those things, and I use just a shopping bag that I got from the grocery store to put any of my little garbage shavings in, and then it's just real easy to tie it up and throw it in the trash. Carrots and onions are super easy to find these days, but any vegetable would be good. Now I'm putting in my 2 cups of lentils, 2 cartons of chicken broth. I'm putting everything in the crock pot except for my sausage. In go my chopped vegetables. I did not cut up my celery stalk because most of my family does not enjoy celery. So what I'm doing here is I'm cutting off my ends, getting it washed, putting it in the crock pot whole, and then it will give me the flavor and I can pop it right back out before I serve the dish. And now I'm putting in 4 cans of diced tomatoes. And remember, I am doubling this recipe. Now I'm adding my garlic, which is 4 cloves, 1 teaspoon of thyme, and then I'm sprinkling some salt and pepper across the top. I'll be putting my crock pot on low. This brings me to my second crock pot tip, which is to put cold ingredients in a cold crock pot and put hot ingredients in a hot crock pot. You can crack a crock pot putting hot ingredients in a cold one. Now that I have my crock pot on, I am cooking up my sausage. I couldn't get chicken sausage in the store, but this is no problem. I just got our favorite normal pork spicy sausage, and I scrambled that up and I'm adding it to my stew. You can see how full it is, and that's why it took extra time to cook, which was no problem. Thyme was the healer of all things, and doesn't that look delicious? This became a very quick family favorite. You'll have to let me know in the comment section below if you decide to try this and what you think of this delicious chicken sausage lentil stew. I am a morning person, so I just love being able to get supper in the crock pot so that I can rest later in the day knowing that supper is ready. Next up is a sweet potato chili with turkey. I'm setting the crock pot on low because I'll be putting in hot ingredients first, and all those ingredients will be listed in my description box below. I'm getting my onion cut up, and you know, if you remove the very middle of the onion, it oftentimes will help you to not get that onion gas in your eyes and to not cry. So I'm doing that today. I'm removing that center piece. I am not up for crying today. This recipe is much quicker. It's 4 to 5 hours in the crock pot, and you're not going to add your beans until the last hour. So although I am draining and rinsing mine now, I could have waited. So I'm getting my turkey burger and onion all cooked up, and if you don't like turkey burger, you could easily substitute beef in at this stage. Because I'm using Turkey burger, I don't have to worry about draining off any of the fat. You might consider doing that if you were to use beef. And now I'm just adding it to my already warm crock pot along with our chicken broth. My 1 can of pumpkin that I'm using in place of sweet potato, and you could have peeled and cooked and pureed your own sweet potato, or you could use canned pumpkin. This is my version of 1 teaspoon of garlic, 1 teaspoon cumin, 1 tablespoon of chili powder, and a ½ teaspoon of oregano. Then 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and you're ready to stir it up and let it do its magic. For my third crock pot tip, you don't want to remove the lid once you put the lid on, because a crock pot works by building up heat. So keep that lid on, and there's that beautiful chili. We were concerned about whether we'd like this chili, and it was amazing. My third recipe is split pea soup. Once again, the ingredients will be listed in the description box below, and I'm getting my carrots peeled and chopped as well as my onion. Of course, carrots are a root vegetable, and it's wise to always put the root vegetables at the bottom of the crock pot so that it's closest to the heat source, because root vegetables take longer than even meat to cook in the crock pot. I like to use my Pampered Chef garnisher to chop up my carrots because it's a lot less pressure on my wrist and I don't have to worry about getting sore. I'll have mine linked in the description box below if you're interested to try it. If you don't have a crock pot but you want to try crock pot recipes and you have a Dutch oven, that also cooks very evenly, and you could consider switching right over to a Dutch oven and using that in place of a crock pot. Also, you can convert regular dishes into a crock pot dish by knowing how long to cook each thing, and I saw a great article from BBC Good Food, and I will have those times as well as the link for that in my description box. I chose to use a ham steak for this because it's very inexpensive. You could use any ham. This would be a great recipe to be using leftover ham. If you did a spiral ham or if you did a large ham for boiled dinner, then you could just use any leftovers that you have for this recipe. Another crockpot tip would be that even when you have a crockpot recipe that is on high for a few hours, you could convert it to low setting and just add more time. Crockpots really do their best work with the best flavors if it's cooked on low over a long period of time. I think we are so often in a hurry that more and more crockpot recipes are giving us shorter times, but a crockpot was really intended to be used low and slow. Now it's my favorite part of the recipe is when you just get to dump everything in the crock pot. So my peas went in first because they are going to take the longest amount of time, and then my chicken broth, and I'm just giving it a quick little stir. This recipe also called for a ½ teaspoon of thyme and a ½ teaspoon of rosemary, which we left out because some of us have an intolerance. Then 3 garlic cloves, and I never measure my garlic, I just dump it in. Lastly, 2 cups of water. Now stir and ignore it for 8 to 10 hours. I'd love if you'd let me know in the comment section below, what have you been using your crock pot for in this fall season? I hope you enjoy all these recipes. This was another yummy, filling recipe with lots of leftovers. In the right corner, I'm going to leave you my hearty bean and bacon soup that I made in my Dutch oven that you can click on and see an example of how to use that for some low and slow soup. Remember that God loves you and I love you too, and I can't wait to see you next time.